It is just a huge, huge honor for me today to be podcasting Dr. Dhru Shah all the way from London, England. He's a registered specialist in periodontics. He graduated from the University of Sheffield in 2003. He then went on to complete a year of vocation training in general practice within the North Wales training scheme. He continued as an associate practitioner in the same dental practice for a few years thereafter, and further developing his skills and gaining experience in the general dental care of patients. Following this, he completed various hospital posts, gaining further training within the various disciplines of dentistry. These included working as a senior house office in the Department of Restorative Dentistry at Royal London Dental Hospital, followed by posts of a senior house officer and a specialty doctor in the Department of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery in Northwest London Hospital's NHS Trust to further enhance his surgical skills. During this period, Dhru also completed examinations allowing membership of the Faculty of Dental Surgery of the Royal College of Surgeons of England. Soon after this, he embarked on a 4-year specialist training program in the field of periodontics and implantology at Guy's Hospital, London. As part of his special training, he also completed a Master's of Clinical Dentistry degree in periodontics at King's College, London, while also attaining the membership of periodontics to the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. This training now enables him to offer a range of treatments to manage periodontal disease, as well as the provisions of dental implants. Dhru's passion, however, lies in helping people, helping dentists make them thrive. He believes in education, empowering people with education, with knowledge, and giving them the opportunity, the inspiration to thrive and be the best that they can be. He is the CEO of Dental Tubules, which has over 30,000 members. It is UK's largest online and offline learning platform, has an international network of study groups of their members called Tubulites, and has offered learning to so many people. My gosh, last time I was in London, it was so fun meeting you and your adorable wife, who's a pediatrician, and your sister, who's a pharmacist. How's your wife and sister doing?
They're well, thanks. They're well. They're keeping themselves busy. They're keeping themselves occupied all day long. So they're keeping very busy.
And if you're, most of all the podcast listeners, about 85% are commuting to work right now, and they have an hour commute. So they can find you. I always retweet my last guest tweet. I'm at Howard Ferran. You're at Dental Tubules, Tubules, and I just retweeted your tweet. This is a Tubule study club happening as we speak on an evening, hands-on prep roadshow. So what are you more passionate about these days? Is it providing periodontal surgery or educating dentists around the world?
Both of them, really. I can't. Each one fuels the other. You know, when you're educating people, you're making a difference to their lives, and when you're treating patients, periodontal surgery, you're making a difference to people's lives, and that's what I'm passionate about. So realistically, both of them working as well as each other.
And it's a yin yang, because when you're teaching something, it makes you more excited when you're back in the dental office doing something. And whenever you're teaching something, someone comes up and teaches you something and tells you, so it all just fuels on each other. It's like a cat chasing its tail.
Exactly. And it's amazing, because what it does, it doesn't just fuel you, it gives you that energy to start fueling others as well, which makes that's the big difference in what I do.
I want to start off asking you something about over here on this side of the Atlantic. In our 30 years, we've gone from indemnity insurance that paid full fee to all these PPO plans that are about 40% less. And you guys have had the same issue with the NHS. It's not like they give you more money each year. They've been cutting your fees and cutting your fees. How many dentists are in the UK now, and how many of them are still solely on the NHS, and how many of them have kind of got off the NHS and gone more of a fee for service?
I think there's about 30 to 33,000 dentists within the health service register in the UK. Now, difficult to say how many are purely NHS, because a lot of the practices could be NHS practices, but they still offer some element of independent private treatment. So I have to be honest, I don't know what the breakdown would be, but we do know that more and more practitioners are wanting to move towards the private sector, simply because of the issue of funding cuts and the challenges of bureaucracy that the NHS provide.
Now, as we speak right now, your dentist right across the English Channel, across the Eurotunnel, the dentists in France are on strike, and the last 2 days they've had major protests in two different cities. And last, when you Google it, they did it back in 2014 too, just 3 years ago. So they're having issues with their state dental
Yeah,
scheme too.
I think it's a global problem. A centrally funded dental scheme, medical schemes are struggling. End of the day, you'll agree with me, medical advancements have gone way ahead, and there's so much more available for patients. And it's hard for any sort of centralized, government-based scheme to be able to subsidize or support this. With the NHS system, it's meant to be that what fee structure the government sets, you should be able to provide the best possible treatment on that. Not the easiest thing to do, in all honesty. And we're not supposed to say that the NHS and the private sector are different or one is worse than the other. So everything available in the NHS is as great as the private service treatment. Um,
Imagine if the government was in charge of cell phones, smartphones. We'd probably be on a 1985 Nokia flip phone.
we'll still be dialing. Remember those
We'd
things?
still be dialing. Well,
um,
why do you think it is that people in America and Britain and France buy their own house and car and cell phone and go out to eat on their own dime, but when it comes to their body, they expect it to be free? Even this last election in America, here's America, $19 trillion in debt, and the party that almost won, their rock star Bernie Sanders was saying, "Oh, and we'll give you free healthcare and free college." I mean,
I
it's
think
like, do they not understand a $19 trillion deficit and how? I mean, how is it going to be free? Are they going to go arrest all the teachers and chain them up in a building and say you will teach for free the rest of your life? Someone's gonna. I mean,
I think I think you know what it is. And this is my view, is that generally politics is based around gathering votes. And gathering votes is about how much can you give away. The more you give to the public, the more votes you get, right? Now, people have become used to this. They've become used to a government. For all these years, the American, the European economies have been the strongest in the world. There's been a central bank of money, right? And they've been able to give this. But as we realize, like you talk about the 19 trillion debt in America, these numbers are shrinking. These numbers are shrinking. And therefore, the ability of central governments to be able to pay for a lot of these benefits is going to reduce. But it's not going to be easy because, like a baby, when you take the toy away, they're not going to be happy, are they? So it's one of these sort of things. Now, we should actually, as people, be encouraging responsibility. That's important, responsibility. Now, my personal story was when I went through education, I paid through my fees because I was a foreign student, and I was paying, something like 20 to 22,000 pounds a year, plus, all my living expenses. And halfway through my education, we ran out of money. My dad had a difficult situation back home, and we ran out of money. And I had to make a choice, Howard. Do I quit and go back home? Or do I find a way? And I worked like crazy. I worked in shoe shops, I worked in burger bars, I slept for 2 hours a night. I saved and crunched money. I lived in a little room where you could just about fit a mattress. The room's roof was so low you couldn't, get up full standing. All the sacrifices, and it made me value it more. So I have more responsibility. I mean, this is what drives my education. I don't want anyone else to go through that. But when you talk about healthcare, it's the same thing that goes through. The population need to take responsibility. They need to be learning to save money for a bad rainy day in the future. Everyone's too reliant on governments. And every time when somebody says, what will the government do for me? And who was the famous man who said, ask not what the country can do for you, ask what you can do for the country? I think we're at that stage. Ask people what responsibility will they take for their own life, or their own existence, for their own priorities. That's my view in all these sort of things. And the more responsibility we'll take, I just believe automatically everything will go through. Healthcare is very expensive. It is very expensive, and there's no denying that. And if somebody else is going to pay for something that's very expensive for you, you're not going to say no. You're always going to accept it with both hands. And people have to realize politicians are not there to just help you. They have their own agenda. And you have to take all these things in a balanced viewpoint. I come from that angle.
The thing I love about the most about London is, when you go to Japan, they're all Japanese. When you go to
Yeah.
Vietnam, they're all Vietnamese. When you go to Poland, it's 98% Polish. There's very few countries like the United States and Canada and the UK where it is. I mean, the British Empire, the sun used to never sit on the British Empire. What I love the most about London is every block you walk down, there's restaurants and bars and people. Every corner you stand on, there's people from a different country. It is the most cultural epicenter on earth. There's nothing compares to London. In the United States, you can get London Light only in Manhattan. You really can't get it too much anywhere else. But so since you're sitting at the epicenter, and even the time zone zero, is dentistry practiced very differently than say the U.S. and Canada versus the UK, or is it pretty homogenous?
The techniques are all homogeneous, and in fact I'm realizing as we've progressed on through my exposure, dental tubules exposure to dentists around the world, that actually the dental knowledge, the dental applications, the dental learning as in America as and in UK are very, very parallel and the same. We talked about the NHS, and because the NHS has held a big shadow over dentistry for a long time, I think the UK dentistry used to be a lot more conservative, while the American system is more insurance based, from what I get there. So it was much more proactive. But I think that sort of small distinction is beginning to level itself out now. And don't forget how, Dentaltown, Dental Tubules, whatever we look at it, globally, we're all getting the same learning platforms now. And therefore, our philosophies are all going and merging in the same direction, as far as I can see. So, what London was and what it is in terms of provision of dental care has completely changed. And it's amazing to see some of the cases, some of the results, some of the knowledge coming out of some of the top dentists around, the London city. It's respectable. It's actually something you can consider to be globally acceptable. But there is still.
I want to ask you a couple of the controversial periodontal issues in the United States and see what you guys are thinking about that on the other side of the pond. The
Yeah,
biggest one being LANAP, or lasers being used in dentistry.
yeah.
I remember when LANAP started, it was very controversial, and just one periodontist out here used it, Alan Honigman. But anyway, how does a periodontist like yourself and your periodontal colleagues in London and all the periodontists on dental tubules, what do they think of this new technology?
I think lasers is interesting. It's being it's being accepted with cynicism, is a good way to put it. Now, you look at the you you look at even a few years ago, people used to think, what's going on here, and dentists, various dentists. In fact, you look at the work of Anton Scullion. I think he showed something like 230 odd consecutive cases and phenomenal results. And in dental tubules, we've had a couple of lecturers who've done some tubules live streams for us and shown amazing results. So more and more people are understanding that lasers do have an implication and a practical sort of application in periodontal work. To really try and convince the more hardcore cynics is going to take some time. They are more interested in getting science, and science meaning real randomized double-blinded controlled trials and things along those lines. The other barrier to lasers is the cost. The big BioLase machine, you're still looking at maybe 60,000-80,000 pound. So people need to be really convinced before they will take this on board. And there are other laser machines and the smaller machines which can help you do the basic elements, because the big BioLase Epic machine lets you do everything: hard tissue, soft tissue, everything. And I think it'll slowly come on board. It's still early adopters in the UK who are using these more often. Do you use lasers yourself?
Um, I have my toys. I've never done. I'm not doing LANAP.
No.
But yeah, I think my first laser I bought in 1987 was a diode for 48 grand, the ND YAG,
Yeah.
laser for 48 grand. I want to ask you another question.
Yeah.
The United States just had 6,000 dental students graduate from 56 dental schools last week, and
Right.
they have this stress in their life. 30 years ago, we did all these periodontal surgeries and tried to save the teeth. Now, the oral surgeons are always like, oh, forget all that crap. Pull that tooth out. We'll fix that gum disease with titanium. And they kind of they get mixed signals. Some people say, you can cure all that periodontal disease with titanium. Other people are saying periodontal. But I've noticed this. This is what I've noticed in my backyard. 30 years ago, it was all periodontal surgery to try to save the teeth. Then implants started coming along, and implants kind of took over. But
Yeah.
now I see that pendulum coming back, because when an oral surgeon tells some young dentist, well, these implants have a 98.5% success rate, what is the periodontal success rate? Well, the oral surgeon doesn't have a 98.5% success rate. What I see is that implants that are 5 years old in the United States, 20% have periimplantitis. So I know this is
Yes.
an unfair question to ask you because you're not seeing the x-ray, you're not seeing the patient, but how are these young kids supposed to navigate between periodontal surgeries and therapies to save a tooth, where they just extract that silly tooth and fix it with titanium, in
Hey,
the
look, the
light of the
young
fact that
dentists.
in 5 years, 20% have periimplantitis?
Well, I think, look, the thing we're now realizing is we've got to, you talk about a young dentist, and young dentists have got to look at two things. And those two important things are, especially in UK and Europe, one is the evidence. As much as the evidence is never perfect, it's worth looking at the evidence. Because if you consider these sort of factors, look at the Exelson paper. They followed these periodontally treated patients for 30 to 40 years. And on average, these patients lost maybe two teeth after 30 to 40 years. So if you look at the bigger picture, periodontal treatment and saving teeth really works well. You then move to the next stage of thinking, periimplantitis, and it's being shown on a fair amount of basis now. Periodontal disease is actually one of the risk factors for periimplantitis. So therefore, if you're going to take the teeth out and stick some titanium in there, there's already a risk factor, and that's periodontal disease itself. So try and keep the teeth going for as long as possible, because you'll be surprised how long these teeth go for. And I have a patient, she was 38 years old 10 years ago when she visited me. And some oral surgeon had suggested to have all her teeth out and put titanium in. She came to me saying, I don't want that because the cost is too much and I can't go through that. She was really nervous. She was very, very, very anxious patient. I said, listen, come and see me. Let's deal with your periodontitis teeth. Let's do some non-surgical treatment. I hadn't even reached surgery yet, Howard. And guess what? 10 years now, 10 years, every single tooth's in the mouth. So, my view is I'm going back towards saving teeth as best as possible. And the other factor to look at is the patient factors. They're local and systemic risk factors. Patients could be smokers, patients could be diabetics. Where is the periodontal disease? How extensive it is? What's the tissue biotype? What's the motivation levels of your patients? Some of these guys have periodontal disease because they're not cleaning their teeth well. And if you're going to stick it out and put titanium there, you might be fighting a challenge of will they be able to clean that well? All
See,
these big factors have to be put into account. And the young dentist has to realize that dentistry is a long-term profession. And the better things you do for your patient, you will develop long-term trust. So maybe if those periodontal teeth then don't survive in the future, that patient will come back to you. And in the UK, if you, yeah, go
Dhru,
on.
Dhru, when you're talking to Americans, you can't say smoking because now half the states legalize marijuana. So are you talking about tobacco or marijuana? You can't just say smoking anymore.
That's very true. And we're looking at tobacco smoke, of course. But marijuana rolled up has some tobacco within that as well, if I'm not wrong, in some areas. But it's the tobacco smoke we're looking at, or even possibly the electronic cigarettes, because we're looking at a lot. I don't know if it's that big in the States now, but in
Yes.
UK it definitely is. They come with vapors with all sorts of different chemicals in those. They're all probably as problematic as it is. But that's interesting. I think it'd be interesting to see what this legalization in the States is, and Canada, I think now as well, is going to do to people's oral health in the future.
Well, one of the most interesting books I ever read was by a British sailor when they arrived in Hong Kong for the first time. And the book is also on audio cassette. It's like 20 hours long on audio cassette. But basically, at the height of the opium trade, he basically said that half of China was just laying around getting stoned. And so I think this legalization of marijuana, I think history might be repeating itself. But you know, the you said that having periodontal disease was a higher risk factor for periimplantitis. So if 20% of the implants had periimplantitis at 5 years,
Yes.
that's only 60 months. I mean, it's still hard to get the dentist to even talk about periimplantitis, because like you'll go into American dental offices every single day, and they've seen the mom every 3 months for periodontal therapy, and they've never seen her husband for 10 years. And he comes in, he's got a bombed out teeth, he's got gum disease. Now, if she came in every 3 months for gonorrhea, the doctor would say, I think I need to see your husband. But for
Yeah.
periodontal disease, I mean, the dentist just, I mean, so many dentists just say, no, it's not contagious. It's like, well, if you went in your backyard and there was a giraffe there, it had to come from somewhere. I mean, are humans born with periodontal P. gingivalis in their mouth? And can you
Look,
really treat a woman for periodontal disease who's kissing her husband every day and he's never been treated?
I don't think there's, again, I will say there is, I don't think there's any element of contagiousness like that, because there are various things to think, and think about this. It's not just the bacteria. Yes, everyone's born with P. gingivalis or the red spectrum antibiotics, the AA, etc. But there is a susceptible patient underneath. Some patients, you've seen them, they haven't seen the right side of a toothbrush, but they don't seem to get periodontal disease. Some do. So there is obviously an inherent susceptibility. But then there is a third factor, and which is lifestyle factors, because people have such a lifestyle that they maybe don't look after their teeth. Now, the woman who walks into your office and has periodontal disease, maybe it's not contagious, but the husband is living possibly in the same environment and the same lifestyle. And so my suggestion always is, look, if this motivation and this element has to work on you, what is the motivation, the lifestyle, the plaque control of the people around you? That's the important part to look at, really. That's what I would balance
In
against.
America, they just want to take a pill. They don't want to change their lifestyle or brush or floss, or
No.
they just want to take a pill. When is the
And in the
periodontal
UK,
disease pill going to come out?
they just want to take mouthwash. They don't
Yeah.
even want to swallow the pill. So, you
Um.
can't take a pill out. I mean, I wish we could change patients. And in fact, it's moving more towards that. We're trying to put patients into a risk profile. We're getting more and more into that. We have to be looking at risk profiles of patients. In fact, there was some guy who was telling us about some work where he said the bacteria in your mouth are self-selected based on you as a profile, as a person. So that's interesting, isn't it? I don't know if that's going to change, but
Well,
we're still a long way from finding these things.
I think the most interesting thing I'm reading about is how your gut biome affects your oral biome. And, you know, I've always noticed that people with a lot of gum disease don't have cavities. People who have full mouth decay really don't have that much gum disease. Like, you never really see full mouth cavities and gum disease in the same mouth, but how the human is made of 1 trillion cells, but the gut is filled with 10 trillion microorganisms, parasites, fungi, bacteria, and what you eat in your diet changes that. And someday, you know, some people who have never seen a toothbrush and don't have decay, we might find out they have a different gut biome. We might be trying to change gut biomes in the next 10, 20, 30 years so that Streptococcus mutans is over and up in the mouth. I want to ask you another thing. Back to these graduates. You're an elite periodontist. You're the CEO and founder of Dental Tubules. You've been at the forefront of dental education for 30 years. She just walked out of dental school, and she goes to the ADA convention, and they're selling 175 different types of implants.
Yeah.
And she's got a lot of student loans. The government, the insurance doesn't want to pay you any money hardly. How does she make sense of 175 different implant systems? And I know what she's thinking. She's wondering, what system do you use?
Well, look, we know most systems work very well. And my considerations about the implant systems I use are based on what my mentors, my peers, the people I looked up to used. Therefore, I've had their guidance as I've approached through time. And the second thing is I look at all the science. I look at all the bits that go around it. I try and study the biology, the mechanics of implants, and I find a system that fits those mechanics in my favorite ways. So as a young graduate, you're going to be 175, if I'm not wrong, somewhere in Italy, for example, there are about 463 implant systems. And we know titanium, osseointegration is predictable. It works. It's about finding the third thing about finding it is not just the system my mentors used to use, not just the system that fits the biology and mechanics of what I understand, but the third thing is support. To me, that's very important. The company's support. Today, if a component broke down or if I had some issue with components, I need to be on the case to call the company and say, I've just had an issue. Can you get me a new component? And I don't want to be waiting 7 days for it and that sort of thing. That's the practice I work in. And that's how I work. So, the implant systems in the practices I am in, the mentors used to use, they've used it for quite many years, is the NEOS system. I carried on using that.
The which system?
The NEOS. NEOS is the system. It's
spell
similar
it.
to Nobel Biocare, from what I gather.
NEOSS?
NEOSS system. And
NEOSS system. Where are they out of?
they're actually based out of the UK. Their head office is in UK.
Does Italy
And
really have, what'd you say, 413? Were you
it's
just
something
joking
like
or is it?
it's something like 463 implant systems out there. Crazy. And everyone's making them. They're local suppliers. And I mean, the other system I've used recently is the Megagen implant system because I love their restorative platform. You've heard of the Megagen system with their double S platform, their S-shaped abutments for my soft tissue profile. And it's a bit more of an aggressive implant. It works more via cutting, while the NEOS system is more a compressive implant system. So I've got two variations I can use, and I choose what I feel best in the patient's mouth based upon my own decision making. Now, a young graduate coming out needs to understand all this, needs to see how other people have worked. And this is where I think Dentinal Tubules steps in, or even what your platform, Dentaltown, steps in. They have to see what others have been using, asking them why they used these implants and what was the thinking behind it, biologically, mechanically, and understanding these kind of systems. We know Nobel Biocare, Straumann, Dentsply Sirona, or Astra, are some, 3i, BioHorizons. Those are the implants that have been on the market for a long time. All of those implants work really well, and I've had experience with most of them. I've settled on these two because of a lot of factors. My referring dentists, what do my referring dentists prefer to restore? And they all like NEOS as their system, so I use NEOS to help them as well. So there's all these factors I put into place, and hopefully this kind of thing helps young dentists too.
Do you know the CEO of NEOS?
No, I know his name. I've never met him.
Well, tell him that what I do is whenever my guest mentions another company or whatever, I always forward their Twitter so that my homies can find them easily. And
Yep.
this people does not have Twitter; they have LinkedIn, YouTube, and Google Plus. Tell them that Google Plus is only used by Google employees.
NEOS is not owned by Google.
Yeah, so since no Google Plus, the joke is that the consumers on Facebook, the only people using Google Plus are the 40,000 employees at Google. So yeah, so tell them they need to get a Twitter deal.
Twitter account.
So tell us about your journey. What was going on in your life? Tell us the Dentinal Tubule story. Where were you at in your journey? Because we both kind of. What year did you launch Dentinal Tubules?
It was 2009. 2009.
Oh my
September
God,
2009.
I was 1998, so I'm old. But anyway, so what was going on in your journey where you started the Dentinal Tubules?
I was at a stage where I didn't feel inspired in dentistry. I did not feel enjoying the profession. I think I was at a stage where the people teaching me were not encouraging me, and I felt I needed to connect. I needed to connect with people who were passionate about learning in the way I was learning out of the box in a different way. And I started Dentinal Tubules with that approach, a complete share, learn, and connect approach. Everyone shares together. That's how we learn together. That's how we connect. But in that, I think I found my big passion. Coming back from my roots in Africa, we were talking about, I've seen people who do not have access to education, people who can't afford 5 cents a day to go to school. And I believe we're at a phase of technology now. Technology can deliver solutions to communities of the world that would never have had these sort of things. And the whole Tubules project has now become education to the world. It's about, education and accessibility, giving education to areas where it would not be available, empowering people through education, and connecting the world through education, through learning. And Dentinal Tubules is my journey, because when I lost the inspiration, it's given me the education to really become a great periodontist. It's given me the power to move forward. And not only that, setting up these study clubs around the world. In fact, we've just been to India and back last week. And setting up these study clubs around the world and providing this education to dentists, we are raising, their profile to another level. And that's exactly, what we want to achieve. Overall, changing people's lives. That's what we aim to do. And in fact, I'll read something interesting to you. When somebody once said that, Dhru, the person messaged me and said, this is an out of the blue message to say thank you. To say we feel very grateful and privileged for my husband's association with Dentinal Tubules. Says you're an immense inspiration to us, and we couldn't be grateful enough for introducing us to a world of dentistry we had forgotten existed, or to be truthful, didn't even know existed in England. Our entry into England and introducing us to this NHS dentistry curtailed our growth, not just in dentistry, but in all dimensions. It destroyed our passion for our jobs. And what you're doing is motivating beyond words. You've given us passion back, you've given us desire, and we thank you for the desire to share and spread education. That is what Dentinal Tubules is about.
And you have a romantic leap through spreading education, because you grew up in Kenyan, but your
Yes.
parents were Indian descent, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And what I love history, and basically the Silk Route went
Yes.
all the way from Japan to the Korean Peninsula, all the way to India, all the way up to the Roman Empire. And for the logistics of that, on that Silk Route, every 20 miles had to be an Indian family, because that was about 1 day's journey back in the route. And then you would hand
Yes.
off the exchange goods coming and going. And now here you are in London, back in India. I mean, Dentinal Tubules. Did you almost think about calling it the Dentinal Tubules Silk Route?
That would have been nice.
A network
I would have.
exchanging. But I love that, and most of my friends in Phoenix from Kenya are Indian descent, and it all steps back. It's just a very, very rich history. So what has got you? So you've had Dentinal Tubules for 2009 to 2017. So
8 years.
8 years.
9 years.
So has it changed much in the last 8 years from when you started to now? Has it changed?
Absolutely. It's innovated itself every year. When you think about 2009, it was a basic forum for people to learn and study. And every year something
That
new
was
has
right
come
after
in.
the crash. I'm surprised you could even start after the crash. 2009 in America, just in Phoenix, we had 87 dental offices went bankrupt.
Well, it was at the crash. It was at the peak of the crash. And that's the best time to start businesses, isn't it? And it's probably the time when the world needs the most inspiration, Howard. So, we did it. We did it at that point. We started as a simple forum. We then introduced articles. We've got a mega media team that goes all around the world, filming conferences, filming surgeries. We have so much stuff coming into our edit studio. So, it's changed. We started live streaming. You've got a green screen behind you, and we're doing live streaming. And we live stream to our study groups around the world. we can get thousands of viewers in a moment. Now we've set up study groups. We've got a lot of technology at the back end doing things. I'm a bit of an IT geek, I must say. Periodontist is one part of my hat, but the other part is IT. And so we're doing all this. It's always innovating, always doing new things. We've literally virtually run a crown preparation hands-on course over the next month and a half, where everyone's getting hands-on training, and there'll be 200 people in a month and a half just had it through one tutor who's virtually doing this. Lots of little things setting up, which is completely changing the way people learn dentistry. So it's quite cool with
Do they have
dental
a do
tubules.
they have an
Never sit
IMAX?
on the edge.
Do they have an IMAX theater in London?
Yep, absolutely. Have you
That's the
been to
next.
one?
Well, that's the next thing that you said. This green screen. What we're doing
Yeah.
is we're switching to an IMAX because I'm so fat. I'll only be able to fit me on an IMAX. That's our new upgrade. But these dental students, when they walk out of school, they think, okay, I learned the dentistry. Now it's time to go get a job. And the bottom line is, if you're a doctor, your education never stopped at dental school. And if I look back at the 30 years I've practiced, and I had to pick one variable that separated the ones who were happy and fulfilled and successful and loved it and made a great living for their family, and those that were burned out, depressed, and miserable, I think the number one thing I can link it to was hours of continuing education. And I always put
Yeah.
that number at 100. Whenever you meet a dentist who is complaining that he had to go to this course because he was trying to get his license renewed and he had to have, his 17 hours or whatever to renew his dental license for another 3 years, they were miserable. But the ones
Yes.
who always took 100+ hours a year, because humans need daily, sure, they need daily brushing and flossing and deodorant, but they need daily motivation. And what I found the most exciting thing about dental tubules or the AGD or anything like that is you're a summary of the 5 people you hang around with the most. So when you go to dental continuing education, you're around people who are excited and intellectually curious and hungry and humble and want to learn. But back home, or your dental school classmates, they might be burned out of dentistry. They just do it for a job. They just do it because they don't know another job they could get that would make as much money as a dentist. And you hang around those people, and they're energy vampires. They just suck all your happiness and motivation out. And
Yes.
I think when you can get on to forums like Dental Tubules and go to study clubs and hang out with people that have positive energy and karma, they're sharing it with everyone. It just fuels you, feeds you.
Completely. That's what it is. And also think about it. The people who go on these courses 100 hours a year do it because they love it. And it's all about, as I say, connecting, share, learn, connect. When you're connecting, you are actually raising your levels to another level. And that's important. The more you share, the more you find people with the same thought processes, and you elevate the entire love of what you do. And if you do dentistry with passion and purpose, you just find a real different angle to it. And you've probably seen those dentists who do 30 hours just to keep their license. They don't have a passion for it. They're just doing it to pay the bills.
Your secret sauce might be your wife and sister, though, because they were pretty gosh darn fun, high energy. They were exuding as much many smiles as you are. So you got a good team behind you. And another thing I want to point out is this: like, if you thought in fear and scarcity, you might be thinking, Howard, why are you promoting Dhru, Shah and Dental Tubules? Isn't that a competitor, Dentaltown? Let me address that. I've never met a dentist who reads one magazine. I've never met a human who only has one app on their phone. Even the people that have Facebook, they also have Twitter and LinkedIn and Pinterest and Dentaltown. And thinking in abundance is so different than thinking in fear. And so many of these little kids will go back to a community, and the dentists across the street from them don't want anything to do with them because they think you're a competitor. Those guys live in fear. Your competitor is iPhones, trip to Disneyland, eating out at restaurants, and you need to find the dentists in your area who think in abundance. Like, there's some orthodontists who will try to make you feel bad if you start learning Invisalign. Well, you don't need that in orthodontist. He's not going to be at your funeral. He just thinks the pie is small. He should be thinking, let's double the size of the pie. Let's grow the pie. Let's think in abundance. And that's what I like about local study clubs, finding out which dentist. If I was a young dentist and I was going to a small town and there were 10 dentists, the first thing I'd want to go do is knock on the door of every one of them and think, okay, who's on my team thinking in hope, growth, and abundancy, and who's a negative Nelly Annie who thinks in fear and scarcity. And in America, one of the best clubs is the Academy of General Dentistry, because those
Right.
people are all trying to get 500 hours of continuing education to get their fellowship, and then another 600 hours to get their mastership. So you're already meeting people who have a goal of taking 1,000 hours of continuing education. Those people don't think in fear. I mean,
No,
it is just getting on the right mindset. I
it's
think what you are doing for the profession of dentistry is amazing, and it's I've been watching you for a decade, and it's amazing to have you on your show. If you had to give that commencement speech to those 6,000 kids who just walked out of school, since most podcasters are young, they're mostly under 30. Old guys like me, hand me my last book, says, here's my advice to the dental student. Here's my advice, but they won't listen to an old, fat, bald guy. I mean,
Pathways of the Pulp.
Pathways of All, you can buy a book like this for like $200, and I mean, you can learn everything, but the millennials have to hop on an airplane for $300, fly across the country, stay in a resort, drop $3,000 on a weekend root canal course, and then fly home. And what percent of that book will that weekend course cover compared to this textbook?
Oh, completely. This textbook has so much information
Oh, 100 times.
stuck to you in life.
And then when you talk about implants, look at this. Carl, this is
Oh,
Randolph resident Carl Mish, avoiding complications of oral implant surgery. I mean, it's 1,000 pages of complications. They won't buy this book for 200. They'll buy a $300 airline ticket, fly across the country, drop $3,000 on a weekend implant deal, get a certificate, come home. And that weekend course, what percent of this book will it cover?
1%.
I know. So they're all. So let me set it up. They just graduated from school. They're $350,000 in debt. How many? What would that be in pounds? British pounds.
Probably about the same at the moment.
Okay.
Probably a bit more. It's not a
Okay.
huge difference. 400,000.
And she wants to be a good dentist someday. What advice would you give her?
My advice to dentists, and this is the main part, is find your passion. That's what I would say. Don't go into yes, you're in big debt, and yes, you've got to earn a living, but put that money aside for a day, close your eyes and think, how am I going to best serve the human being called a patient walking through my door? What am I going to do for that human being to make their life the best possible thing as they walk out through my door? That's the passion that will help you, because when you find your passion, I'll tell you what, you will suddenly find a rocket up your fuel, because you will find similar passionate people. You will find similar persistence people, and you will find ways to gain that knowledge of your passion. You've just told me 2 books, and there was a gentleman, Carl Mish, who, bless his soul, left us earlier on. But he was, amazing. His passion was implants, and how much did he, knowledge did he impart across to people? Find their passion to the young dentist, because your level of dentistry, your level of exudance, your level of confidence will rise to another level. And before you know it, you'll be like me, watching videos all day long. Hey, Howard, I sit on the treadmill and watch these tubules videos. I sit on the treadmill and listen to your podcasts, because I know that's how I'm getting, fit in the body, fit in the mind at the same time. Passion is what drives me there, because I love what I do. And when you love what you do, suddenly every day just becomes a simple flow, and every day becomes one which is results oriented. And when you find your passion, at the end of the day, you ask yourself one question. And that one question is, what are the 5 good things that I achieved because of my passion today? A positive mindset will develop and carry on delivering that. That's what I would tell the 6,000 young graduates sitting in front of me.
That was amazing. You should have that should have been a commencement speech. I want to ask you another question where the historical macroeconomics is in direct collision to modern day reality. So
Yeah.
in 1900 in America, healthcare was 1% of the GDP and there were no specialties. At the end of the century, healthcare was 14% of the GDP And the physicians, MDs like your wife, who's a pediatrician, there were 58 specialties, and there were 9 for the mouth. And now you see the recurrence of the belief of the super doctor. Like, we're going back to 1900. These kids come out and they say, I'm going to master implants and orthodontics and Invisalign and cosmetic dentistry and sleep apnea and bone grafting, and it's like, whoa, really? I mean, you can almost not master just placing implants. You can almost not just master ortho. You can almost just not even master sleep. You can't master anything. And whenever a dentist comes up to me and says, I'm going to learn sleep apnea, I'm like, well, that's a shitload of information. What are you going to give up? Are you going to start referring out endo? Or what are you going to give up? And so what do you think about this noise and belief that's spread at all these conventions that you should just be a super dentist and master every single thing on earth and you'll be the best?
My view is stick to what you know best. And look, I could not master the white stuff in the mouth, the composites and the crowns and things like that. Hence, I became a periodontist because I enjoyed my surgery. It takes, and I still haven't, I'm still young in periodontics. I still haven't mastered it. It'll probably take me another 20 years to achieve the super result. So I don't know when I'll get time to do the next bit. These younger dentists, maybe they want to get good at everything, or maybe they're scared that if they're not good at everything, the patient will walk away. But hey, it goes back to what we said. There is no competition. Find dentists who complement your skills and develop a great collaboration network. You become good at one thing, let the other dentist or the other specialist become good at their thing. Let the other person become good at that. Between the 5 of you, you'll be sending patients to each other and working as a team. That's my viewpoint. It's all about collaboration. It's all about working together.
And if my homies listening to you today, if they went to dentaltubules.com, what would they find at dentaltubules.com?
At dentaltubules.com, they will find a community of, tens of thousands of dentists ready to help and support them, pretty much like Dentaltown. At Dental Tubules, they'll find well over 30,000 minutes of video-based content on anything in dentistry they want, from non-clinical business to clinical business, clinical topics of basic dentistry to advanced dentistry. They will find the study groups around the world, and they can form their own study groups. We are more than welcome to bring people on board. They will find speakers, live streams, where they can log on and happily enjoy a conversation like you and I are having. And they will just find the inspiration to become the better dentist who loves what they do every day. And that is what they will get, a bit of everything. And so we have, like you, we've worked hard to bring some of the best and biggest speakers in the world to come along. I mean, Edward P. Allen came the other day and did a live stream for us. He was phenomenally amazed at what a live stream entails. And we hope to tubulize the world. Tubulize is our term. It means you've been inspired to teach or learn and share.
So is British words are just slightly different than English words. So when you're looking, so clubs and study clubs what is speakers under? Is that under community partners?
The videos.
Oh,
you'll see it under videos.
Okay,
yeah,
so
you will see Tubules Talks.
Tubules Talks, Tubules Live, Playlist, Tubules Cast. Where was the list of the speakers? Because I saw it earlier. I don't know what I.
You can go on the homepage. You can go on the homepage and you'll see industry-leading speakers. And you'll see on the homepage, we've got some of them. We're updating this list as you and I speak.
Allen, Alessandro Conte, Howard Gluckman from, I love that guy from South Africa, Lincoln Harris from Australia, Sam Lee, an amazing periodontist. He's from what, Boston?
No, Sam Lee's now in San Diego, from Boston originally, yes.
Okay, he moved to San Diego. That was smart. Boston is as cold as London in the winter. The one thing I have to tell my homies is that, it's sad that the Chicago midwinter meeting, Chicago is one of the greatest cities in the world, but they always have their annual meeting in February. That would be...
Why is that?
because I've asked them for 30 years, they say, well, we've had it this time of the year since 1985. And it's like, all right, whatever. And then Boston, another great city, and their seminar their big Yankee Dental Congress is in January. It's like, and London, I got to tell you, London is the coolest city on earth. But you don't want to go to London in January. I mean, it's up in the middle of the North Sea. I think
Yes.
Boston, Manhattan, Chicago, London. I like the spring and the fall. But I got to tell you the first funny story about London. Whenever I got 4 boys, and whenever I go on overseas trips, I always take at least one of them with me. Sometimes I took 2 or 3 or 4. First time I went to London, took Greg with me, and we checked in the stuff, and he saw this big Ferris wheel, the London Eye, and he said, "Let's go ride that." So we were all excited. We set out across London. It was so deceiving. I mean, I think the thing was like 20 miles away from the hotel, because after we were walking like 4 or 5 hours, it didn't even get any bigger. We finally got to it. I think we got to a room at like I don't know. I think like 9 or 10 or 11. I think we got to that thing at like midnight, and it was the coolest time ever. I mean, every city block was just another amazing smell from a restaurant, a sound of music. I mean, it was just. But when we got home, the only thing he told all of his brothers and sisters and family, the only thing he would mention is he only wanted to eat the fish and chips. And every time it was time to eat, I don't care if it was breakfast, lunch, or dinner. He thought
Fish chips.
he still thinks London has the best fish and chips in the entire world.
That's amazing. Oh, well, it probably does actually, because there's some amazing. But London is cosmopolitan. If you sit on the London Metro, the London Underground, you can probably hear about 50 or 60 languages within a very short while. The world comes together in London. And, I've got to say, the events of the last few weeks, a few things that have happened across London have been very, they're sad actually. People having lost lives. But I still believe it's a city that holds its own, and people really, London has a life of its own. And people do look after each other.
Well, how old are you, Dhru?
37.
37. So I'm 54. So it's the same story every day, because when I was growing up, the IRA was doing that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now and then yesterday we had a bad event here where some senators and congressmen were playing baseball, and someone went down there to shooting people. But everybody always thinks the sky is falling. But I want to tell you real quick. So we had a congress member shot there today. Well, actually, if you go back through history, that's the 17th time it's happened, and I mean that stuff's always going on. It will always go on. Hell, we had one of the congressmen that died. When was that? In 1859, Senator David Broderick died because he called for a duel with the California Chief Justice. So they actually walked out front, paced off 3 steps, turned around, and shot at each other, and one of them was killed. So the crazy stuff has always been. I still think this is Europe's finest century. I mean, think about the last century had World War I and World War II.
Yeah.
So you look.
Lucky.
So the Europeans that think, it's so bad right now. Bad compared to what? Compared to World War I? I don't think so. World War
Hopefully we
II.
don't get there. Hopefully we don't get there.
I don't think it will. I think that every generation thinks they've got it the hardest. But if you go look at the last 100 years, just the last 100 years, we got it so much better. You know what I'm most excited about? This is 2017. And if you go back to the last century, 17 years into the first century, what did you have? You had the Spanish influenza that killed 5% of the population. What do we have this century? Vaccines.
We're living in one of the best times. I'll never deny that. We're living in one of the best times on the planet.
This is
we have the
be
best
our
standard of living.
century.
We have a roof over our head, and we're actually living. And everybody's got a car. Everybody's got brilliant life. It's comfortable. And there's no doubt about that.
In fact, the next generation will be so lazy they won't even have to drive the car. It'll be all driverless cars. We'll be sitting there in the nursing home saying, when we were little, we had to drive our own car. I still think in my lifetime, the greatest technological advancement I experienced as a child is when we got an automatic garage door opener. Because I had 5 sisters, so every time we pulled up to the house, Mom kicked me out of the car, and the garage door was made of wood. And I was just a little
Yeah.
boy. I mean, it almost broke my back every time I left that thing. When we installed an automatic garage door opener, I don't think I ever remember having anything that exciting before in my entire life, where you would just push a button and the damn door would go up. That was amazing. So
Take it back.
I've only got you for 3 minutes left. Take it away for the close. 3 minutes.
Look, all I have to say, Howard, is you have done an amazing job. And the amount of people who I walk around and listen and say, the first time I heard this guy, the first time I saw the speakers, the first time I saw this procedure was in Dentaltown. And whatever idea you came up with, you have touched and changed the lives of many people in this profession. So, if you were going to give me 3 minutes, I would say in those 3 minutes, congratulations to you, because you've done something of great, amazing importance, which not many people, especially when you started, had the nerve to do it. And I'm hoping that Dental Tubules also does the same thing, and collaboration and all these things are important. But what you've done is pat yourself on the back for that.
Well,
I just wish that whatever you do for the next 5 years, continue delivering that passion to dentists. That's what I would say. And as long as we can keep people energized, inspired, and passionate, I think that job is happily done.
well, I could say the exact same thing to you, and I'll tell you what, I love dentists, and I have been in so many dental schools in Africa and Asia where they told me that their entire family saved up and sent them to dental school in Somalia, and it was in the capital, and it's the finest dental school, and the only thing that they really enjoyed about the whole dental school experience is finding the online resources of Dental Tubules, YouTube, Dentaltown, and I was just in Soweto like 6 months ago, and these dentists would tell me that they can go home and get on your site, YouTube, Dentaltown, and they would say, it would take me 3 months income to fly to London and take a course, or to fly to America
Exactly.
and take a course. And now you can get online and become the best damn dentist you can in the entire world. The resources are there. You just got to be hungry enough to realize, humble enough to realize that somebody knows something more than you do. You got to be humble.
Yes.
And then you got to be hungry. You got to have the work ethic. I mean, think of the work ethic. You slept 2 hours a night because of your drive to want to be a periodontist. And
Yes.
so they can sit there. They can sit there, and I've seen them in Somalia, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and they're just young, passionate. This one girl, she was full moss. All I could see was her eyes. She held her smartphone like it was a holy book, and she just said, "I can learn every dental procedure known to man for free on my Samsung." And she was just so excited. She was giddy, and it's so interesting that in 1880, 80% of the planet could not read or write. And
Yeah.
now over half the planet is on the internet through their cell phone, making it a smartphone. And in just 5 more years, they're adding another billion earthlings to the internet via their smartphone. And that's why it's going to be our finest century.
That's our vision. The Tubules project is about education to the world. And the technology we're developing in 3 years, when Tubules earns a profit, I'm going to put that money into building a school in Africa and teaching them maths, science, English, etc., using the Tubules technology via their smartphone or their device. Nobody in this world should never ever have no access to education. They should always have access. That, my friends, is the Tubules vision and the Tubules project. And I'm going to go for that.
And can I give you one little tip on that?
Yeah.
If you have that center by the Serengeti or by Mount Kilimanjaro or halfway between Mount Kili and the Serengeti, so many dentists would go and visit and teach for free and do everything because it's so cool when you can go do missionary dentistry and then climb Mount Kilimanjaro or go see the Serengeti, because the Serengeti is still the only place I've ever gone in the world where I just thought, oh my God, I didn't realize this still exists. I mean, like,
Heaven on earth.
What's that?
Heaven on earth.
I mean, you go to a zoo and you see 2 hippos. You go to the Serengeti and there might be 150 hippos in one in one pond. I mean, it was just so, you always knew where the lions were because all the
Yeah.
animals were staring at it. And you always
Yeah.
knew how fast the animals are because those little gazelles, they'd get within 20 feet of those lions because they knew they could outrun them. But the wildebeest, they'd stay back 100 yards. So you could, the guides could pinpoint where the lions were laying down in the grass just by the speed and the I mean, my God, that was so cool. But hey, love you to death. Please tell your wife and your sister it was great seeing them. Can't wait to see all you guys again. And if you're ever coming to America, ever want to do anything in America, just let us know. We'll help you do whatever you want to do.
Thank you, and same here. Come round to England soon. We haven't. Well, you were here last year, but we missed you. Next time, you interviewed one of my friends, Neil Jaswal.
Yes, and
When you came in.
I need to come back with Greg. He needs some more fish and chips.
Yeah, that's right. I'll take you some good places.
And
Thank you very much, Harry.
I gotta tell you, it's the funniest picture. I should hang that up. We were coming out of this restaurant. This guy had a red Ferrari, and he was just a little kid. And he just spoke out. And he goes, "Oh, I wish I could sit in that car and and have my picture taken." And the guy, he was telling that to me, and the guy that owned the car was just like the other side. He goes, "Hey, little boy, that's my car. Go sit in there so your dad can take a picture of you." And he was like, "Oh, really?" He had so much fun with that. It was a red Ferrari. All right, Dhru, have a rocking hot day.
Have a good day. Enjoy. Thank you very much.